This is the second iOS tutorial, and today we will be covering outlets and actions. iOS follows a event-driven paradigm. Basically, the user sees a screen, and then the user interacts with the screen, presses a button, and then usually some type of change is represented on the screen. And this is the basic model of most iOS programs, and outlets and actions are what allow us to program this type of thing. So for a simple example, I'm going to go back to our first project. That this is here, okay? We made this in tutorial 1. Here, this is a label we created, okay? So it's my first project. And if you notice, if I click the view controller, click this thing, there's a name here for the class called view controller, and that matches up with this, okay? When you make new views and you want to write code that describes how the view's functionality, you're going to want to make sure that you're going to want to have an H&M file and you're going to want to have a view, and for your view, you're going to connect the two by writing the name of your H&M file here, okay? Now, to create an outlet and an action, I'm going to need two UI elements. So we have a label here, and now we're going to make a button. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this here, and there we go. So we'll just leave the name as is. You can double click and change the name, but the idea here is I'm going to click this or touch this on the simulator, something's going to happen to the UI. All right, and to do this, we need to create an action. So if you remember in the last tutorial, I told you to remember the assistant editor, and this is basically the key for how this is going to work. You need to make sure you have your H file selected of the H&M file, and then you're going to grab the button, hold down Control on your Mac, click, and drag it over here into the interface block. Okay, you see over there it says outlet, action, or outlet collection. Don't worry about outlet collection for now. Just outlet and action are fine. For this button, we're going to make it an action, and we'll call it, you have to give it a name, call it button touched. And this, don't worry about that too much. And this you can change the event, so for various things you might want different events, but typically for a button you're just going to want touch up inside. That means just press down and lift up, then this event will activate. So we hit connect there, and then this we're going to add an outlet. So we're going to do the same thing basically, except instead up here, I guess there's only lets you do outlets for labels. Sometimes there'll be an option to put an outlet or an action, but for labels, do not have that option because they're not designed to be interactive. So for this case, we're just going to put an outlet. We're going to name this my label. Click connect. Now, just to show you real quick, you can also do this, and you can see there's also outlet. So you can make this button an outlet as well. Okay. And I think the best way to describe the purpose of a button and a label is, or an outlet, excuse me, is to show you in the code. So we're going to go ahead and code something into this action we created. So when you do create an action, what's going to happen is in those H&M files that correspond to this, your class over here, you're going to see we just created that, and then in the M file, look, we got an extra thing. We have view did load, did receive memory warning. That's the boilerplate code, but it created something for us called button touched, and there's a little filled in dot over here. What that means is when this button, we perform the touch up inside action, whatever is in this method is going to activate. So for start, we're just going to make some simple code here, and this will illustrate what an outlet allows us to do, right? So if you remember, we called it my label, right? That's the name of our outlet. And I'm going to get the text property of that label, and I'm going to set it equal to text changed. There we go. Now, watch. When we run this in the simulator, Okay, so it's running, and here we go. When I touch this button here, boom, the text changes, right? And that's what allows us to do that is because the label, we created an outlet for it, and that means we can access that object, the label object, and we can access the properties of that object. One of those properties is the text that it contains. So if you want an easy way to think about this is that an action is a way for the button to basically communicate with the code. It sends a message from this interface to our code over here. Okay, that's an action. And the outlet is sort of the inverse. With an outlet declared, from our code, we can send a message back to the interface and make changes to the interface. So, as you could probably guess, this is a powerful paradigm, and it's something that you will be doing a lot in iOS programming since it's so UI driven. At any rate, I think that about sums up outlets and actions. This has been the second iOS tutorial.